Welcome back to Roman Popular Opinions. The lighting, yes, I'm aware. This is just the intro. This is just the intro to the reading vlog. So it's been, I don't know how many years. It could be 3. It could be more. But I want to finish this trilogy. I want to finish this trilogy on video. The thing is, it's now been ages since I read books 1 and 2, and not that I don't remember them. I remember them pretty well because I read this entire trilogy so many times. However, reading this book, which was always my least favorite, now that I very staunchly oppose the romance in this, is going to be interesting, and I will try my absolute hardest to not yap as much as I usually do, because the other 2 were a very consistent length, I think around 40 to 50 minutes. So let's just get into it. Let's do our best. And I really wonder how I will feel about this last book so many years later. I mean, it's been what, like 6 years now since I read the series for the first time. Let's just discuss. Okay, I'm about, what, 30 pages in. This book is like all plot. And I remember that from the first time. It's like all plot. Because I read the sample chapters that you had on Kindle while I was waiting for this the third book to come out. I literally had it like pre-ordered in my bookstore, where they would call me like when they got it, when it was coming out. And I read the sample chapters on Kindle, and I could not believe that she actually killed off the horse in the sample chapters. Like, believe me, waiting for the book after reading those sample chapters, I was genuinely debating not getting the book because I was like, okay, yeah, she's gonna kill the horse. Like, absolutely no way. Obviously, I feared the entire time that he would actually stay dead, which he doesn't. So I trusted her enough. I put my faith in her after loving those first 2 books so much that she would bring back the horse, and she does. So, which is why I'm not that upset about it anymore, because like, I know she brings back the horse. But the thing that I always loved was the whole quote of like, perhaps she could just step away, walk into the gray forest beyond life and be gone. Death was someone she knew. Now, I wanted to comment on this a little bit because we've established that I don't like the romance. However, her relationship with the gods, like with Baba Yaga, with Morozko, with the bear, with the mushroom guy, with Midnight, or like Ponochnica, I think she's called, Polunochnica, I think she's called in the book. I love so much. Okay, I love so much. Now, if it just didn't transform into a romance, I would have been the biggest fan. And like, again, 30 pages in, this still hits. Okay, it still hits. It's a wonderful book. It's beautifully written, and she's an excellent writer. Okay, description wise, mythology wise, like her talk with Mrlja in the stall with Solveig, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, stunning. So if I manage to ignore the romance somehow, like this is still my favorite trilogy of all time. One of them, one of my favorite series of all time. So if I manage to somehow block out the romance, just skip through it when it shows up, I might have a better reading time. So we'll see what I do. But I just wanted to hop on here and say that after so many years, I was beginning to doubt if she would still hit. But obviously she does. Like, obviously she does, okay? Because I'm just one of those people who I've always had fundamental, I don't know how to say it. I've never fundamentally changed as a person for as long as I've existed. So everything that I loved on such a deep level, I think I will love forever on that same deep level. So while yes, I am no longer 18 years old and the romance creeps me out and it's not something that I like in this book, it is still something that deeply resonates with me, like regardless of that. Like I have a complaint now that I didn't have when I was a teenager, but the book and the story and the writing, it still hits. It still hits the same. So I don't really have to fear it not hitting the same. It's similar to how I never knew the Red Queen books. I mean, I always knew the Red Queen books were bad, but the fact that I always loved Maven remains the same. This is a weird comparison, and that's not even what the video is about. I just wanted to say how happy I am that it still hits the same, and I was kind of actually certain that it would. Up to part 2. Let me just... up to part 2, which is page, 48. I genuinely forgot that this book was divided into so many parts, because, like, it's a long book. It's almost 400 pages, and it's not like the pages aren't full, but love it. Love it. Either way, I forgot how much I loved it. I think because so much time passed since I read book 2. And again, there's no problem jumping into book 3. Like, I've read this about 1,200 times. Not really, I'm exaggerating. I think I've read it at least 3 or 4 times. But I've never read it in this edition, actually, because I read the beautiful UK copies a few times before I got to collecting these like American copies. They're a little bit wider and a lot more floppy. I wanted these to be like for reading because the beautiful UK covers, first of all, I tabbed them to death. Like there are so many tabs you can't even turn the pages, especially in the third one. And I don't like that material. Like that buttery material where you can see all the fingerprints, like you touch the book for 5 seconds and there's a permanent fingerprint on the cover. So while the covers are beautiful, I hate that material. This is like a normal, like smooth material. And again, they're a little wider and a bit more floppy. So these are perfect like for reading, whereas the other two are just really beautiful tabbed copies that I read 2 or 3 times before I bought these. This is like my first time reading from these. The videos that I made and the video that I'm currently making is my first time reading from this copy. And I forgot how much I loved it, okay? I've been, like, just for reference, this is a winter night vlog. I will not dawdle or anything, but I've been in a bit of a slump because I want to read Witch Hat. And until that gets to me, until all the volumes get to me and I can do the reread, I've been reading like graphic novels, reading chapters here and there because I can't get myself to focus on anything. And a pro tip, if you're in a slump, whether you want to read something that you don't have access to yet, or you're just in a slump, pick up something you just know is good. Like this is a surefire way of getting me to read it. Like this is excellent and I know that it's excellent. So it's not that much of a risk for me to read it. Like I am slumpy, but again, in the way that I know what I want to read. So nothing else is capturing my attention, but it's going to take me like a few days to read this at most because it's one of my favorite books of all time. And it's not going to be a chore while I wait for the other thing that I want to read. And I really wanted to get the third video out because there's just a part of me that cannot stand unfinished business. Like, I even finished my Star Wars and Grishaverse vlogs, so it is time for Catherine Arden, and it's winter and it's just perfect. It's so, so, so freezing cold. I'm I'm ranting, but I love it so much. It's excellent, and I'm glad that it's excellent even after so much time. I'm reading super quickly, even though I was doing something else. I'm going to try and get to page 100 today, but there's just one thing that I have to note, and that is that I'm currently in part 2, which is her siblings and Constantine. But Constantine and the bear is exactly how I wanted her and Mrlja to interact. Like, not in the, like, not in the toxic way where he, like, believes he's a devil and the devil's amused by him, but in the way that it's still very clear they are, like, demon and human. Like, I don't like, that's what I want to say, I don't like the humanization of Mrlja. That's my least favorite thing about it. And obviously from his humanization stems the fact that it's a romance. But here, when, like, Medved kisses Constantine, which is again also, like, the connotation where he's like, I am your monster and I am your beloved. But here, it's very obviously sinister. And there's very obviously that power balance where, like, you know who's the demon and you know who's the human. Like, Constantine is similar to Vasya in that way because he has the same relationship with Medved that she has with Mrlja, except her relationship with Mrlja is for some reason treated as an actual romance, whereas this is very clearly a demon bonding with a human. I don't know how to describe that. I feel like I'm not articulating it properly, but my point is I really wanted for the mythological to stay mythological, and for humans to stay humans. Like Vasya becoming mythological and becoming a witch and getting into the other world and, like, meeting her grandmother Baba Yaga and Chernomor and everything. I like it. I like her integrating herself into that world and sort of becoming otherworldly and never coming back. However, I still would have really appreciated for Mrlja to be Mrlja. Like, he's a super cool entity in, like, mythological history. He's both the god of death and he's winter, and he's the harsh winds that kill people. He's the frost, he is the ice. Like, he is too cool of a presence to be thought of as a love interest. So I feel like just putting that in the story distracts from the power of the mythological setting. And I am forced to wonder if she really, really wanted the romance to happen, or if someone, I don't know, pushed her into it. Because I remember when there were live streams and she was reading, like, the early versions where Mrlja talks to her mother or whatever. She was reading the early versions of her first draft, and I never got the sense that Mrlja was anything beyond the epic power that he is. The power of nature, death itself. And yes, like, both him and Medved sort of bonding with people makes them a little bit more human, but at the same time I feel like Mrlja is far too human. Like, far too human, especially in this book and a little bit in the second one. And the horse does say that to him, that he's becoming too humanized. I still disagree with it. And I think that instead of Mrlja becoming more human, I think we should have focused on Vasya becoming less human. I think that's what I'm saying. Like, it's great for her to go off with him and to go off into the world of myth and fantasy and midnight and death and magic. But I think there should have been more of a focus on her becoming less human and becoming more of a wishy entity than on humanizing Mrlja and making them a couple. I just hated that so much. And now that I'm reading the chapter with Medved and Constantine, and I love that dynamic so much, and I'm later on in the book, Vasya's dynamic with Medved is also, I think, my favorite part of book 3. And it just makes me sad. It just makes me sad because she could have had that with Mrlja, but it just has to be a very, very cringy, shoehorned in romance that detracts from both of them as characters. That's what I'm trying to say. So I will keep reading. let's hope I do not yap this much. I think I'm gonna pause here for the day. I always tear up a little at the chapter with Diedgrib. He's just precious, and he's everything to me. He's precious. Okay, I always tear up a little when she hurts him and then cries for him and like heals him, and he's so shocked that he's immediately like, "I'm following you. You gave me tears and a flower. I'm following you." Diedgrib. I think it's my obsession with mushrooms and whatnot, but little grandpa mushroom is like it's the personification of everything. Everything that I love. Okay, he has always been my favorite character in book 3. Like I love him so much. One of those, like, not inconsequential. He actually has a role to play. He is the first to follow her, to trust in her, to help her, to lead her, to get her others to join her side, but just one of those small entities in the story that means so much to me. Okay, it means so much to me, and I love him. And Žar-Ptica is also great, and so are the other creatures. I think we're going to get to Baba Yaga soon. I think the next chapter is bargaining, and then we have Baba Yaga, which is going to be very, very enjoyable. This is a little bit over 100 pages. I think that's enough for today. I could read a lot more, but since I've already teared up, which, like, it's frankly been a while since that happened to me, since Witch Hat, I need to take a little break because, like, it's just so good. Okay, revisiting something you love after a while and it's still being great is just delightful. Delightful, to say the least. And I'm very happy, if you can't tell. We're on chapter 12 called Bargaining, and we will talk tomorrow when I continue, but I'm just so happy. I'm so happy that this is as good as it still is. I suppose I will just piggyback off of what I said yesterday. Hello, it is. It is, in fact, another day. I'm reading. I'm on the chapter Baba Yaga, so I didn't make that much progress. I forget how much of Medved there is. I remember after book 1 being a little bit upset that, like, there wasn't that much of him. Like, he's an important entity. He is Morozko's opposite, and they're like death and life. So I was like, it's a little strange that they trapped him and then that's it. So I was actually very happy when they brought him back in the 3rd book, when she brought him back in the 3rd book. And I forgot how much of him there actually is. Now, I caught myself wishing that there was no Morozko. And now, for reference, like, Morozko used to be my favorite character. Like, I love Vasya with all my heart. She's one of my favorite protagonists and still is to this day. But I see a representation of death, personification of death. Loved it. Loved it. Okay? He's the frost. He's the wind. He's the snow. I love it. However, now I just see Morozko as her love interest, and that is not good, obviously, but especially in this book, because I know what happens in this book. This book is just the most egregious with its in-your-face romantic subplot, which, again, yes, you could view it as like her coming into her own and becoming what she is and becoming the witch who will eventually walk off with death at the end of the book and become what she is. But I don't want Morozko back. Like, every time Medved shows up, I'm excited because I adore him and I adore his interactions with Vasya. So, like, when Morozko shows up, I know what's going to happen and I'm already dreading it. And I just wish that he didn't show up. Don't know how to explain how much the romance thing actually bothers me. How much the romance thing actually bothers me after so much time. But that aside, like, I'm loving the book. I'm loving the book so much, and I love how, this is what I mean. I wish Morozko was way more like Medved, like way more unpredictable. Like, from the 2nd book onwards, when he's humanized into being Vasya's love interest, he becomes less cool and more predictable. Like, Medved is very unpredictable. So even when he does something good, you still can't really trust him, which makes him such an interesting presence in the story. But I know exactly what to expect from Morozko, and that's what's so dull. Like, he should technically be cooler. Like, the character of Death is supposed to be cooler than the character of, like, chaotic, destructive life. But no, here is the opposite. Here it's absolutely the opposite. I love when Medved shows up, and I am very annoyed when Morozko shows up because he's just so tame since he's been relegated to the role of love interest. We are at the chapter, The Chains of the Winter King. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Also, this is this halfway? Not exactly halfway yet, but I remember the first time I read this, when I read about like Morozko's mental prison or whatever, he gets out of it super easily. Like, obviously, you know he's going to get out of it because the book wouldn't work without him getting out, but he gets out actually super easily. Like, all these people hyping up how difficult it is. I feel like sometimes you shouldn't shoot yourself in the foot. Like, Midnight and the bear and Baba Yaga, all of them telling Vasya how difficult it would be to get to him without sleeping and to free him, and she doesn't struggle at all. Like, she doesn't struggle at all to fall asleep, at least yet, but she's already reached him. And if I remember, it's not that many chapters before she frees him. Like, I'm just, wait, memory. Yeah, see? It's like what? A chapter? Maybe two. Maybe two. Until she frees him. Yeah. Within 2 chapters, she frees him. And they leave on their horses, and that's that. Anticlimactic much? Pun intended, considering what happens during those 2 chapters. Oh, I already don't want to read it. I already don't want to read it because that annoys me so much. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. There's this line that she says. Where is it? Did I lose it from it? Yeah, this. Morozko laughed, free and wild, and so like the bear that she flinched despite herself. In his eyes was a blaze of heedless joy. And that is when he's at his coolest, when he's like the bear. Okay, when he's like the bear, when he isn't human, that's when he is the coolest character. Except after this, he becomes the least cool character. I would love to sit down with Catherine Arden and to ask her if it was her initiative to make this romance or if someone told her that her story needed to have a romance. I am losing my mind. Like, I wonder what it was when I was younger that made me like this type of dynamic, like immortal and mortal. I know it's still popular. If you enjoy it, that's your business. I know it's still extremely popular, like immortals fooling around with mortals, but I always found that it diminished both parties. Like, the immortal is less cool. Is less cool for liking a 17-year-old. This is the immortal, timeless god of death, but he's apparently in love with a 17-year-old, and he's never met one like her before, and the 17-year-old is immediately diminished by believing that such an entity could replace like a boyfriend or a husband or whatever. Now, again, she isn't the worst contender at this because I have always claimed that you could interpret this as symbolism, as just like her coming together with Morozko is just her coming together into her power, becoming truly of the other world. Like, she leaves with him in the end to find Chernomor, to learn from Baba Yaga. Like, it's implied that she's no longer human, she's in their world. But it doesn't read like that, you know? Like, that's my interpretation. It doesn't read like that. There's all these, like, love confessions and the god-awful sex scene. And, like, it reads too much like a romance for me to really see that headcanon that I have about the true meaning put into play. Because I feel like it just breaks the immersion to all of a sudden have these random, genuine, normal, human love confessions. It's weird. Okay, it's weird, and it doesn't work. I'm losing my mind. I am losing my mind. Her breaking him out of the mental prison by literally just getting naked in a bathhouse, essentially seducing him into remembering. It's so pathetic. It's so poorly written. Like, this is what I was dreading. I forgot how bad it was. Okay. The bear, his twin brother, a literal mythological entity, imprisoned Morozko inside his own past, inside his own head. And you're telling me, yes, I know what she's playing at, that none of them thought their bond was real, so they didn't count on that. They all thought that, like, she would die, because there's no possible way that the Winter King could have real feelings for this maiden. It's so pathetic. It's so pathetic. First of all, that it's been, what, 200 pages? Almost 200 pages that he's been imprisoned for, like, what? Not even 200 pages. He paid this price for her to be imprisoned. The world is in peril because he's trapped. The bear is running rampant. Do you know what frees the entity of winter and death from the prison that his brother put him in? Sleeping with a woman. Not even a woman. A girl. A teenager, which, yes, she wasn't a teenager at this time. 17 was fully bred for marriage and children, but for a universe where you can walk through midnight and there are horses that turn into birds and a walking mushroom, an immortal primordial being, death itself, hooking up with a 17-year-old being, what frees him from his mental prison is the worst thing I've ever read. Not really the worst thing I've ever read, but the worst concept I've ever read. It's awful. Like, it's just awful, okay? Like, I hated it, even when I loved the concept of the two of them as a romance. It's just awful. It's just awful. Like, I don't know what would be better, how else she would, like, get him to remember. I don't know, because it was obvious she was going to make him remember by playing to their relationship in some way. But it's awful. It's just awful. Like, playing to the whole, like, she needs to lose her innocence and become different than the women of that time by, like, being free or whatever. But, like, it's awful. Okay, it's awful. It's just, I hate it. I'm going to try and move past it, but this is what I mean. Because of this sequence, I now dislike both of them, even though I objectively like both of them. Like, I love Morozko. I love Vasya. I love them as characters and as people. But bringing them together, and all I have to say. It's again the third day, although you can't tell because I wear the same clothes when I'm at home, but it's the third day, basically. Getting past the absolute horrific situation of Vasya and Morozko, I love the bear, okay? I love the bear so much, and his, like, talks with Constantine are absolutely fucking excellent. But the other character who I loved and who I've always loved is actually Father Sergei, because this book, obviously the people of the church are contemptible, like, they're horrific, and I feel like he's the only the only decent priest around, when he says to Sasha that, like, it does not matter at all what you think about the Winter King. He does not care at all. Leave your sister alone. Like, he is just genuinely so cool, and listening, and how he's like, it isn't our business to say what the Lord wishes. We're just here for the helpless and the afraid. That's why we're going to Moscow. There's hair stuck through the page, and I love him. I genuinely love him. I feel like I don't like anyone else that's here. And there was a point that I was going to make, and I already forgot. But yeah, I'm just I cannot wait for Vasya to like ride the bear and for her to go with the bear, because that's by far my favorite bit of the book, when the bear becomes an ally rather than an enemy. Because for this entire book, obviously you think that he's going to be the enemy, but he isn't, because at the end there's the war and everything, and Vasya's brother has to die, and she's going to have both life and death on her side. But Constantine, he's just the embodiment of everything that sucks. Everything that sucks with men of God. So that's all I want to say, really. But Vasya and Mrlja are driving me up the wall. Like, I thought I would be able to pretend after the bathhouse scene, but I can't pretend because he's just too humanized and I don't like it at all. Here's the problem, okay? Here's the problem. When Mrlja has that conversation with Alexander, it's giving Twilight. It's giving Twilight, and that is not something I want to say for one of my favorite series of all time, okay? When they're talking, and how he says, one day she will go where even I cannot follow. I am immortal. First of all, I thought she would become immortal alongside him. She would become a creature. She wouldn't be human anymore. She would become something like Baba Yaga and forever linger in the land of midnight. But that aside, then if she asks if there is a man who can warm her and pray for her and give her children, will you let her go? It's giving Edward and Jacob in the tent in Eclipse, okay? Like, I watched those films actually, like, I think near the end of last year, because when I was horrendously unwell, I was watching Twilight. It is what it is. It's giving Edward and Jacob in the tent, and it's like, that's not a compliment. if she finds a man who can warm her and give her children, will you let her go? And then he's like a little sarcastic and whatever. Oh, it's horrible. And then how Mrlja says, like, you're not the creature of God. This whole obsession with, yes, obviously, just from the perspective of priests, but myth and folklore and God aren't mutually exclusive, because there's this thing that's always bothered me a little bit in storytelling like this. I mean, not storytelling, this is real. So I suppose in any sort of theory like this that's ever existed. But if God created everything, then they are creatures of God. You know what I mean? That whole paradox. But we're not getting into any sort of philosophy here. But in this scene, Mrlja sounds human. And that's what irritates me. Okay, he sounds human. He genuinely sounds like they're talking about protecting her. Can you even be a good husband for her? Like, he sounds human, not like the entity of death that he actually is. And I hate it. So hang on. Let me just move on. I am afraid for her soul. It is a sin. You are a fairy tale, a nightmare, and you have no soul at all. I want to throw up. I will pray for you both. It's awful. Okay, it's just awful. I'm sorry. Sasha was always my least favorite. I think then it would be Olga, and then the two which I haven't mentioned so far in book 3. I know I mentioned it in book 2, but Alyosha and Irina. They're my favorite siblings. Book 1 is my favorite book. They're my favorite siblings. They actually understand Vasya, and they're so close to Vasya. I think Irina could see them, or it was just her mother. I don't remember. It's now been like 3 years since I read book 1. But Alyosha, closest to Vasya in age, closest to her in personality. Like, I grieve that she never went back. Okay, that at the end, she didn't like go back with Mrlja and we saw them again. Because I'll be very frank with you, I don't give a crap about Sasha. I do not, okay? He's a priest, and in this story, we do not like priests. Even the good ones, because they are the cause of the death of the Certi, of the mythological beings, of the bear's justified anger, of Mrlja disappearing. Like, we do not like the priest in this story, and I do not like him. I do not like how he cannot get out of his hypocritical mind, even now, at the ending of the book. I think he still does have a bit of a turn. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't hate him. Like, I think her siblings are very much in line with the time. Like they left when Vasya was still young. They didn't see her upbringing. They didn't experience everything that happened in book one. Like both Olga and Alyosha are actually a part of the world in a way that none of the others in Lesnaya Zemlya or Lesnaya Zemlya weren't. So like she became a wife and a mother locked up in a tower, and he became a priest and all that entailed. So like obviously they're not going to be my favorites, and they have their moments, but I miss Alyosha and Irina so much, and it's such a missed opportunity that they're not mentioned again, that they don't show up, that like it doesn't matter that they might not see them again. We don't know what happens to them. We don't know if the horrific stepmother changed at all. Like Vasya never goes back to visit them, and I feel like that's such a missed opportunity. Also, imagine how fun it would be if she like took Mrlja there. Like Mrlja is going to be the heir to Baba Yaga, but imagine how cool it would be if she took Mrlja north to like meet her best uncle and her aunt, who's technically very close to her in age. But either way, I miss them. And I wish she went back. I got so much of Olga and Sasha throughout the last two books, but they're not the siblings that I care about. Like, this is what I've said before, and I will say it again. I'm just gonna close the book first. We've read, I can't believe I'm still have that much left, but my point being, the first book remains my favorite. It is so apart from the other two. Like, there's a clear connection and like line link between books 2 and 3, but book 1 could almost be a standalone. Like, genuinely, and I've said that always, the book 1 could be a standalone. It's sort of how in the Grish trilogy you can tell that each of her books was written as if the others might not get published. That's exactly how I feel about the first book here, because it could be a standalone, and it feels like she didn't know if she would ever get sequels, whereas when she did get sequels, books 2 and 3 are connected. But book 1 could absolutely stand on its own, and I don't want to say it because I love books 2 and 3 dearly, despite their flaws. Book 1 is just, it means everything to me, and the best parts of book 1 never come back. Never come back, except Morozko. Like, the parts of book 1, like the mythological wonder, never come back after book 1. And that was my rant. I think it's just me missing book 1. And I will say now, I think there's a reason why I put off reading book 3 and why book 2 isn't my favorite, because they spent a lot of time in Moscow. I will reread book 1 many times. I cannot say the same for the sequels. Let's discuss the thing that bothers me the most. Okay, now she's walking with her sister and they're talking about boys, as one does when the entire city is in danger. But when they're talking about Morozko, and there's the whole thing, and this has been bothering me the entire time, but this is the first time that like I got the need to talk about it. But even a girl in love with a devil needs someone to negotiate for her. I know why they're calling them devils, but I feel like Vasya should be the one to intercede. You know, it's one of those, like, when a new religion takes over a pagan one, and I did study this actually like last year because I was studying specifically Slavic Balkan mythology, which is where I live, and how Christianity took over that and it just replaced the names of a lot of stuff so it would be easier to digest for people. But here's the thing. Just because a new religion comes in and there's an older religion, that doesn't make them the same. Like, Morozko and his brother are not evil entities. They're manifestations of things, of life, of death, of the cold, of warmth, of the seasons, of fear and chaos, calmness, coolness. Like, they are representations of things that are not inherently evil. So I feel like Vasya, at least, should take issue with the fact that all her siblings are calling Morozko and Medved evil, like demons, devils. Like, they are not Christian devils, Catholic devils. I mean, this is the Orthodox Church. So Christian devils, they are not Satan. They are not Lucifer. They are, if anything, manifestations of nature, life, and death. They are not inherently evil. So when her sister says, even girls who love devils, I think Vasya should take issue with that. When Sergei and when Sasha call him a devil, they should take issue with that, because they are not what that word means. That is what I am trying to articulate. Like, the certi aren't demons, even if that is technically, categorically what they are. These are not Christian entities. They are of a belief that existed before, that existed for longer, that isn't that is of the natural world, that doesn't belong in Christianity. That is why it is disappearing. Like, obviously that is just me personally taking issue with this, but I feel like so should Vasya. I feel like Vasya should also take issue with this. She doesn't need to go on like a whole philosophical rant or anything, but she needs to sit down and tell both her siblings, like, you don't need to fear for my soul, because this isn't a Christian sin. You know, like, Morozko isn't a man, and he isn't the devil, and he isn't Lucifer. Like, I am not sleeping with Lucifer. This is something older, something different. It's not the same thing. The word devil doesn't apply to Morozko and his brother. I know they use demon a lot, like frost demon and stuff, but I don't think that's that accurate either, because I'm spinning in circles, but my point is the connotation that those words have in Christianity don't apply to them. Like, Morozko and Medved could both be perceived as evil, depending from your point of view, but as we see later on, neither of them are evil. They just are. Forces of nature aren't evil. So it irks me, because it's been happening a lot, and I find it a little annoying that Vasya isn't correcting them, because I feel like she would mind. Like, considering that her siblings are scared for her soul, I would actually correct them, and I'd be like, this isn't part of your religion. Like, this isn't the devil the way that you see the devil, if you know what I mean. Several things have to be said. Okay. I'm at the last chunk. They're gonna muster all the certi and Medved and Pojar and all the others, and they're gonna go fight. But I warn you, the road leads through darkness, Sasha said. Then we will go through darkness, sister. Okay. Granted. I said I liked her siblings in this book the least. I still love them. Okay, this is my point. I love Sasha. I love Olga. They're just the most flawed out of her siblings. But I do love all of her siblings. I do love all of her siblings, and I'm glad, because the middle of this book was just horrendous for me, like atrocious. It threw me off the entire story. But I do love it. Like, I do love it. Okay, I love it as a whole. I love everything she has to say. I love how she says it. I'm not exactly a fan of how Constantine's death was handled, because there is no smidgen inside me that feels sorry that he's dead. I frankly would have loved if it wasn't by his own hand. I am far more bloodthirsty about it than Vasya seems to be, but I can look past that because he is dead, so let us rejoice. However, this is weirdly paced, okay? Because the first chunk, until she gets Morozko, which is like 150 pages, which is a big chunk, this is like 400 pages. Those 150 pages feel weirdly slow and like a prologue. Then you have a very strange section with her in Midnight and saving Morozko, which isn't that long. You'd think it'd be longer. And then I feel like there's just this weird filler section before the fight with Medved, and then from the fight with Medved we go straight into mustering the soldiers for the fight against the Tatars. So it's weirdly paced. It's very strangely paced. I feel like you either get too much time off from the main fight, but also it feels like when you get to the main fight there's not that much breathing room. Like, once you get rid of the bear, he's immediately freed because we need him for the last fight, so you don't even get to enjoy 5 seconds of the last plotline being resolved. I don't know. This was always my least favorite in terms of pacing, in terms of everything that happens, even though it does wrap it up in a beautiful way, and Solveig has yet to come back, and it's lovely. It's lovely. And I love the things that happen here and Diedgrib, and when she goes to get all the certi. Like, I love it. Okay, I love it. However, again, however, as far as last books go, it's a little bit all over the place. Like, I feel like it's either all action or no action, because right now we're at page 240. Let me see when the book ends. Hang on. This seems a little bit strange to me. So basically, we have like 100 pages left. We have 100 pages left, which exactly, this is exactly what I mean about the pacing. We have 100 pages left. We just had a massive battle that we've been building up to all book. We haven't really been building up to the Tatars. We've been building up, not just in this book, but in all the books, to the fight between Certi and humans, which is what just happened with the bear and his vampires. Like, this was the climax for all intents and purposes. But then there's another 100 pages. I distinctly remember feeling this way when I was reading the book for the first time, where I finished this fight with the bear and Constantine dying, who was, like, by the way, the main antagonist, and being like, how is there 100 pages left? Like, I know she has to go through the historical thing and there's a historical fight, but it feels strange. It feels a little tacked on, you know? Because, in my opinion, Vasya actually was the bridge between humans and Certi when she interfered in this fight, because she intervened between the brothers, between the vampires and the Domovoi. Like, she already was the bridge, you know, when they had to defeat the bear and the priest. But mustering all the Certi to defend the land against Tatars just because there's the historical accuracy and she knew she needed to end it with that battle is a little weird. That's all I'm saying. It's a little weird. It doesn't feel like it's not equal. I'm trying to articulate what I'm saying, but the humans didn't exactly help the Certi in this fight. Vasya just defended the humans from it, and by getting all the creatures to again defend the humans from other humans, I feel like those two things should have been distinct, you know, instead of just getting all the entities of Russia to fight against the Tatars just because she needs to end it that way. I feel like the bear thing should have been the climax. I feel like the bear maybe should have grown stronger after the fight with the Tatars, that they obviously win because that's historical. It like should have gained more strength after the death and the fear, and then that would have been the climax. And then in the ending, even though I love the bear and Vasya together, and then maybe in the ending you could have had like a sequence where she talks to the bear and they come to terms with each other and they become allies. Maybe when she defeats him, he admits her power or something and they come together. And I am rambling. I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but my point is this. I feel like it should have been reversed. I feel like the ending of the book shouldn't have been a fight against men where the Certi will defend them even though they are losing their strength because of men and their bells. I feel like for the entire series, we care more about the Certi than the people. That's just a fact. And it shouldn't have ended with them defending them with nothing in return. I feel like the fight with the bear and the priest should have been the main thing instead of the Tatars, because no one cares about the Tatars. Constantine and the bear were the main antagonists throughout the entire series. I will pause it here today. Or at least for now. I might finish it later because I don't have much left. I've had enough. I've had enough. And I cannot believe I'm saying this. Because, like, it's woven with so much that I love. But this book is, like, by far the worst. By far the worst. And there was this one scene that just happened that I hated so much. I'm not even going to repeat myself because I've touched on all of this. But there's this moment when Vasya says, when she's presenting Morozka to her sister as like her boyfriend or whatever. I don't even want to speak about it because it irks me. But like she says, then you are damned. And Vasya agrees with her. Vasya says, I am already damned by the laws of God and men. I just don't want to be alone. And it reads so much to me like defeat. Like Vasya saying at the end of her journey, that in a way she's saying that she still believes in the laws of gods and men, that she believes she is damned. So like, as since I'm damned, might as well go with that guy, because like at least I won't be alone in my damnation. And I never realized that before. I never lashed onto that before, but I think that's just because I was not that critical of the romance before. It's such a defeat for her character. Such a defeat for her character that she does consider herself damned. Now, I would argue that it's possible she just said that to her sister, but then I feel like she would need to express in private that she doesn't feel that way, or at least like in an inner monologue she would need to express that she doesn't feel that way, because otherwise I will have to believe that she agrees, that she does think she's damned, that she's godless now, but she might not as well be alone. And I don't like that, and I hate that. Like, I really, really don't like that. She does treat Morozko as a man. She does treat Morozko as a man, telling him that she loves him and hooking up with him before he leaves, and genuinely just treating him as, yes, this is a person who will share my damned, cursed fate, but at least I won't be alone. And it's a horrible sentiment. Okay, it's a horrible sentiment where instead of coming into her power, instead of telling Olga, like, even as vaguely as possible without like insulting her faith, I do not have to adhere to the laws of your faith and your country and your world because I'm not of this world. Like, if I am a witch and I am going to live in midnight with our grandmother and search out our great grandfather Chernomor, like, if I do these things, I am not of your world anymore. Like, I am not damned, I am not cursed, I am not in hell, simply because I do not adhere to your beliefs. Again, she doesn't need to say this to her sister to like crap on her faith, but she also needs to in some way reassure her sister that, no, I'm not damned, instead of just saying, yeah, I might be damned. I mean, I am damned already. You know, what the hell? I might not as well be lonely, considering that I'm cursed to hell for all eternity now. You know what I mean? Like, I want her to not think this, and this is the end of the series, of the trilogy. I do not want her to think this. I want her to, in a monologue after that, like, tell Morozko, like, I do not want to, crap on the faith of my brother and sister, but, like, I don't consider myself damned. I don't believe that I'm going against God and country by being a witch. It's counterproductive. It's counterproductive to the entirety of her story because we see her believing this. She just never says it, and it's never explained to you. She also blames herself for her brother's death somehow. Somehow, but like, at least she doesn't bend nature to save his life, so yay, I guess. And I just realized how many problems I have with the third book, okay? A lot of it, I think, has to do with just story structure, because I love Catherine Arden's writing and just her focus on folklore, but a lot of that also has to do with the fact that for the first time since reading this, and it's been years, I feel that I am not certain she isn't more partial to humans than Certi. For the first time, because I always praised her for how much she loves the mythological side of it and puts focus on it. But for the first time, I'm not certain she isn't very partial to humans. Because even Constantine, who's the worst person in the series, gets his, not redemption, but like an implied sad death. And like all the Certi, again, I repeat myself, band together and like unite life and death entities to save humans from themselves when they get nothing from it. They get nothing from it. The people are hurting them. And what Vasya does is bridge the gap between Medved and Morozko, not between the Certi and the humans. And for the first time in my life, I am actually genuinely finding myself disagreeing with the focus of this, because I do not care about the people and about their fight against the horde of invaders. Okay, I do not care. I did not read 3 of these books for them to defend Russia against Tatars. That is not why I read this book. However, her next book being about World War One, and I never even managed to read past like chapter 3, makes a lot more sense now that I've realized this. So I am toying with the idea of reducing the rating of the 3rd book, which feels blasphemous to myself. But I've been toying with that idea for years. I feel like this is the first time it might be very real. I don't think I would go as far as a 3, but it is no longer a 5. Like, I resent it. I've realized that I deeply resent it. I'm back. I decided that I made myself like chamomile tea. I'm gonna let it steep. I decided that it is time to finish this. I even moved from the couch so I could like sit here at my desk with a light and nothing else just to distract me, like my tablet's back there. I'm using my phone to film. There's no computer except to like power up the light. We're going to finish this thing, okay? Do you know why? Full transparency. Do you know why we're going to finish it instead of waiting for tomorrow? I want to read Witch Hat. I think you're going to be hearing about that series in every single video, but I want to read it. I do not have volume 5, but I'm very confident I can read volumes 1 through 4 until volume 5 gets here. I want to read Witch Hat. I am sick and tired of this. I cannot describe to you my disappointment, so we're going to finish it. We're going to sit down. We're going to finish it. I'm in for a good time because I think she's going to go free Medved. And then the Cherti are going to unite. That's the last good thing about this book. I do not care about the rest. And Solove comes back. Like, I think she won me over the first time because she brought back Solove. But that was not a cheap shot. I'm very glad she did it because she does care about animals in her books. And frankly, if she didn't bring him, like if she hadn't have brought him back, I would have like gotten rid of all of her books. So that was the one like saving grace for me. But I think I gave her too much credit for the 3rd book just because of that. Now we're a little bit more objective and older. So let's put the tea aside because it is scalding hot. And it still needs to steep properly. Also, yeah, chamomile because it's like what, 11. I think I don't drink any other kind of tea this late. So let's get into it. Let's tackle the beast. Let's be done with it. And this vlog will be longer than the other ones, but granted, that's because I had a lot more to say. This is what I want. Okay, this is what I want. When she flees on Požar, and when, like, she goes to get the bear's help. Big fan. Okay, big fan. That's my favorite part of the book. That's my favorite part of the book. And the fact that Djed Grib sent over Požar. I love it. I love it so much. Okay, that's my favorite part of the book. And Solove coming back. I still can't get over the fact that it's rushed. The order's a little bit strange. And I go back on what I said about, like, the bear being the villain after the war. I get where she was going with this. I just didn't remember properly. So again, I absolutely go back on my criticisms when they're no longer valid. So I think the order of things is okay. Still too rushed. Still too rushed. I feel like we spent half the book getting to Morozko, frolicking with Morozko. And I had that feeling the first time too. I was like, the climax is 150 pages long, but everything up till then felt like very slow build up. The pacing of this book is just all over the place. I still don't care. I still don't care about Russia. I still don't care about the battle. I still do not care about the humans because the problem of the Cherti isn't really going to change, is it? Like, it's one of those very tragic stories where, like, it's going to get lost. You know that the religion will overpower it. I don't really know what I'm saying. Like the disappointment from before, like it's still there. It's still there. But I just love this bit so much that I feel like I'm able to ignore it for at least a little bit. I will have complaints by the ending. I remember that much, but I just love this sequence so much that I'm willing to forget like the second third of the book. Wish I could tell you how big of a fan I am of this. Okay, oh, I lost it. I lost a page. This keeps happening for some reason. Hang on. I lost it. Okay. This bit. Yeah. What happens to anyone who grows to understand you, Medved? Living happens. Like, dare I say it? And I do dare because I've always said it, but her, like, not relationship, because that's a foul word to use after the horrendous side plot with Morozko, but her like bond with Medved when she finally comes to understand him and speaks to him as an equal, where he actually begins to respect her, and he's like, "Oh, I can see why he wanted you." I love so much. Like, yes, Morozko is supposed to be like the calm, collected, cool-headed image of death and of frost. But like Medved is alive and full of chaos and just energy, like how his blood is life. And it reinvigorates her. And when she rides on the bear back into battle and when they're together, like, oh Lord, like this small brief moment of time, like the 2 or 3 chapters where she runs with the bear. I love so much. Okay, I love so much. This is what I mean. This is what I mean with this book that I haven't had with the other 2. I could be like gushing, gushing at you how much I love it, and then I could be complaining. I could be like, okay, this is awful. I didn't notice how awful this was before. And then I could be gushing. But this is what I mean. The stuff that I always loved about this book, I still love about this book. But the stuff that I never really liked, I now hate. So, like, that's the change. So even though I currently love it, because I've always loved this part of the story, I think it's still going to be a lower rating. Like, it has to. I hated too much of it this time to keep it at that 5-star rating. But I love the bear so much. I will not even like switch on the other light. I can't. But I love him. Okay, every time I read this, I'm like the bear. I love him so much. There's something about the chaos spirit. Oh, I love it. I cannot even put it into words, but can you set fires yourself? Yes, and put them out too. Fear and fire are my tools, sweet maiden. Can you smell my cousin? Russian blood, he asked. Do you think me a witch in a fairy tale? Yes or no? He lifted his head and sniffed Valda. Yes, he said, growling a little. Yes, I suppose I can. Like, I cannot tell you how much I love Medved. I'm also slipping into Croatian a little bit because, like, this is a Slavic fairy tale, so when I say those words, I just keep slipping into Croatian, and it's almost midnight. Anyway, I love him. Here's the problem. Okay, here's the problem. And I will get to that in a second, except I need to tell you what wait, where is it? Answering laughter rose in her, the giddy joy of striking fear in her enemies' hearts. She tamped it down, but not before her eyes met the gaze of the king of chaos, and she saw her own reckless delight reflected there. She's so much more like Medved than like Morozko. But I digress. What I wanted to complain about, what I really, really wanted to complain about is this. I also feel like I'm way more awake, even though like the tea is supposed to make me more tired. Doesn't matter. But what I wanted to say was this. This chapter, as beautiful as it is another problem. Okay? Is another problem because she needs to have the fight happen because it's historical. Like, she is bound by history. So by making this chapter where she twice overpowers them and terrifies them, like with the Žarptica, with Medved, with Polnoshnica, did she like do anything? Regardless, or she terrifies them with magic and with the Cherti. Here's the problem. She could have stopped the fight if she genuinely harnessed the power of like herself and Morozko and the others, and the bear properly like gave in to his killing instinct. She could have stopped it. Also the weak ass excuse she gives when the bear tells her like you should have killed the guy, like Mamai, I forgot, Mamai, I think it was like the leading Tatar, and she's like, but a code of honor means that I couldn't kill him because he gave me my brother. All that nonsense. Like, oh, she doesn't escape it being a plot hole just because it's cool, okay? Because she decks them. She overpowers them. She gets to their leader like that. Like, there was no reason. Like, you should be blamed for Sasha's death because you could have taken them out yourself. You could have asked, like, the Banik and the Vodianoi to drown them. Like, what would have happened? Nothing. Like, it would have been so easy for her to get the Cherti to help her get rid of them, to, like, protect Russia or whatever. Stupid. I always thought it was stupid but I ignored it because this is my favorite sequence. Like her with them utilizing their power and laughing madly with the bear. My favorite sequence in the book. It's a plot hole though. Plot convenience, if not a plot hole, because everything after this, like, should not have happened. Like, she should have killed the leader. She should have just let loose the Cherti, and the Tatars would have been dead. Like, this is what I mean. When you play with history, but then there's a mythological side to it that you add, they obviously overpower the Tatars with the magic. Because, like, what are they supposed to do against, like, a raging flood? Nothing. There's nothing that they can really do. Or, like, an avalanche or tree fall or whatever. Nothing. There's nothing they can do. Or heat or frost. Like, she has the gods of death and life on her side. But the battle needs to happen because she's bound by history, and she has said repeatedly that she always knew she had to end it with that battle. Like, all this contrivance. And what we're left with is a fight that could have been prevented, where her brother dies, and a very, very cool sequence of events with her and the bear, which is my favorite part of the book. That just makes it worse. That just makes it worse. Like, she has the most powerful beings on Earth on her side, and she's magical herself. But no, she lets the battle happen. She lets the battle happen and then grieves her brother when she didn't even have to. Like, Catherine Arden wrote herself into this problem by having to have the battle, by keeping it historical, even though she's, like, pushing the boundary of that. Like, this is a beyond fantasy and mythology. Like, the magic here very clearly, like, affects history. Like, the emperor here fought a mythological bear and vampires, so, you know, she's already affected history quite a bit. She just wanted that battle, and she's pulling whatever bullshit she has to pull to get there. But this is what I mean by, I am way more objective about it now than I was when I was younger, when I was just, like, enamored with the book. But it's a problem. It's a problem, and I cannot ignore it no matter how much I love the story and the sequence. And I love it. I love it to bits. Okay, her and the bear, my favorite dynamic in the book. It's still a hole. It's still a gaping hole in the story. Okay, let's call a spade a spade. I forgot. I forgot what she says in the end. She tells them, let them have both faiths. Did God not make the Cherti too? So yes, my complaint from earlier doesn't hold up. However, again, I love admitting that I'm wrong, especially when it brings me joy, because I love her. I love Vasya. However, problems are still not solved because this comes out of nowhere. Not completely out of nowhere, but again out of nowhere. This book is a mess. Okay, the last 100 pages feel like a book themselves. Like, her epiphanies, her coming to understand the bear, what the Cherti want, her becoming this rational, calm person who doesn't give in to revenge, who doesn't give in to impulses, who's calm, collected, methodical, like who talks to the priest as if she's been the leader of the charity for decades instead of like what, days, maybe weeks. Like, I love her. Don't get me wrong. I love this. This is how I wanted her to be the entirety of the third book. But that's the problem. Like, the last 100 pages feel like a book themselves, whereas everything that came before that just felt like a very long and very bloated and very, very bad prologue. Okay, all the crap with Morozko, all the drama, all the everything just felt like a lead up. Like, since the bear is trapped and to the end, it's great going with its plot holes. Let's not forget that, but great going. The characters have been developed. There's relationships are being fixed, developed, progressed. It's wonderful. But I'm just sat here and I'm like, I can't forget everything that came before it. It's great now. I love Vasya with all of my heart when she tells them of this. Like, let the people keep both faiths. If you promise me this, I will bring the rest of Russia to defend us, which I still think is stupid. Again, it creates such a plot hole to have the literal powers of the earth with you, and then for the fight to play out as it did in reality. But that aside, because they are supposed to be a lot more powerful than humans. That is, especially when they believe in them. I'm getting distracted, but that aside, the development is not out of nowhere, but very abrupt. Like, it feels like a light just appears above her head, and she realizes the thing about Medved, and then she's a whole other person. It's like she's grown 1,000 years since she realized that she is meant to reconcile Morozko and Medved instead of let them fight each other. Like, that one epiphany changed that girl's trajectory and changed her mind for, like, gave her 1,000 lifetimes. Like, I know this is a stupid way to say it, but she feels like Morozko. In this moment, she feels like Morozko, whereas Morozko has been like a weirdo, random dude human for so long that I don't even find him cool anymore. But she is now what he's supposed to be, if that makes any sense. I don't even know what I'm complaining about because I love her to bits when she's like this. I guess my point is that I wanted her to be like this for longer than 40 pages, you know? I wanted her to be like this for longer than 40 pages. The speech she's making now to Father Sergei and to Dmitri, I wanted her to make like 200 pages ago. You know, I wanted for this book to have substance, except at the end. Like, yes, the ending saves it. A good ending can make me ignore a lot of the bad stuff in the middle. But it doesn't change the rest of this book, you know? Like, the good ending holds up. It's great. I love it. It doesn't change what came before it, though. This book needed a lot more editing. And while she nailed it, sort of, apart from that, like, last chapter, while she nailed it and brought back Sullivan and everything, it needed a few more drafts. It needed a bit of editing, reshuffling, thinking things through. If she really, really wanted that battle, she should have made the Cherti not that powerful, first of all. And second of all, she should not have wasted that much time on the romance, which it still jumps out at me that it was forced in some way, that someone forced her to do it, because it's just so unlike anything else in the book. But I could be wrong. It could absolutely be her own thing. But as happy as I am, I still cannot ignore the fact that all of this day I was yapping about how much I didn't like it. No, when Sasha tells her, better even the Winter King than that beast. You both have an exaggerated idea of my brother's good qualities, said the bear. I cannot tell you how much I love. I would say that man, but like that creature, that being, that entity, that primordial thing. I love him to bits. Okay, that character archetype, like the chaotic trickster who could like just as easily kill you as help you, it's giving Loki. Okay, every mythology has a Loki, and I always love I always love a Loki in every single mythology that I come across. There's a certain appeal to me in the characters who like you can't really predict them, like they're unpredictable, and they could hurt you, but they will also help you if they're bound by their word. Like, oh, that's my favorite character type. And this is exactly what I mean. This is exactly what I mean. Again, we're in the last 30 pages of the book. Like the last 100 pages of this almost 400 page book. The last 100, minus the ending, are a masterpiece. Why is the rest not a masterpiece? Why is the rest not a masterpiece? This is what irks me with writers. If you can do it, why do you not do it all the time? Why do you not do it the entire way through? Two things, okay? Sasha just died. Well, he was wounded. Anyway. Two things. What was the point of single combat? Like, what was the point of single combat if they just charged and now they're fighting? Maybe I missed something, which, like, fair, but, like, what was the point of single combat except to make it very dramatic that her brother is dead? Like, he could have just died in the fight, you know, and she finds his body or, like, sees Mrlja lifting him and grieves. Like, you could get the same effect without being this dramatic. Like, there's no point. There's no point. They're now charging and they're fighting. What's the point? Like, I love the bear fighting for her and giving her the power. I also really love her using the power to bring back Solivate. Like, imagine if she brought back her brother instead of Solivate. I never would have owned this series if that was the case. I never would have owned this series, but her choosing to save her horse, beautiful. Beautiful. Like, it made me sob the first time that I read it, but there was no point to this. Like, I feel like I could say this about so much of this book. Like, there was no point to this. It looks cool, but there was no point to it. I will say it quickly, because I've yapped on for probably 2 hours at this point. The scene where she rides with Mrlja and the bear, stunning. Okay, beautiful. Beautiful. Like, if this ever has made an animation, I will probably frame that scene. That said, and like, this is what didn't used to bother me. It didn't used to bother me because I was so impressed with the ending that I forgot everything else. But like, there's a hanging shadow behind me. And that is Mrlja. It's her love interest. Like, this scene is immediately, like, it would have been epic if both the powers were like at her side. If one of them wasn't just her love interest, I cannot tell you how much it bothers me. Like, they are the eldritch powers of the earth and of life and death itself. And Medved, like, embodies that. But Mrlja goes into battle and calls her beloved, okay? It's like up there with him being like, honey, to your left. Like, I hate it. It's in the back of my mind that, like, she's not riding with two gods, but that, like, one of them, like, too much humanization. This could have been epic. Her coming together with the forces of the earth, but no. It can't leave my head that she's, like, galloping with, with, like, what? Her boyfriend? With her boyfriend and his wild twin brother. And that is not how I want to see this scene, because it's so cool. Okay, Vasya coming into her own power as, like, the third actual power and bridge between them. All I can see is genuinely, like, her boyfriend and his crazy brother. Like, I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate the fact that how much I dislike the romance now hampers my enjoyment of one of the best scenes in the book. Makes me angry. So many things make me angry, and that's the problem. Okay, that's the problem. I cannot forget the things that make me angry and enjoy the things that never used to make me angry. I used to sob. I used to be charged at this point and wait for Solveig to come back. I still can't wait for Solveig to come back, but I'm just so annoyed. The line when she's walking side by side with the brothers, and then she says, God help me, they're both mine. I'm sorry. We've crossed from Twilight and got into Vampire Diaries territory. Like, again, it's ruined by the fact that Morosco is her love interest. Because when I hear this line, I'm like, oh, great. Is it going to be a love triangle? Like, it's awful. It's awful. Like, it ruins my enjoyment of the rest of the book. This is what I mean by egregious. Egregious. Okay? I would have loved this scene. But they're, like, flanking her. Like, that one scene in the Vampire Diaries when, like, Stefan and Damon are flanking Elena. Like, we went from Twilight to the tent conversation to Vampire Diaries. Okay? This is the quality of the imagery that's in my head. Oh, I'm so angry. Because, like, the brothers flanking her as powers and her saying they're both mine would be so powerful and potent and symbolic if Morosco wasn't her love interest. I cannot tell you how much that bothers me. It bothers me. I feel like you're able to enjoy this type of stuff. I mean, it's not a dig at you. I think it's just an observation. I think you're able to enjoy this kind of stuff, like the mortal immortal thing, if you don't think about it. If you don't put any thought into it, into its implications, into what it means, into anything. And I'm with you. I've been there. I ate their romance up when I was like, 18 years old. Loved it. Loved it. I cannot stand it. Okay, I cannot stand it. We're done. If this video is 2 hours long, that's fine. You know, it's fine. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I feel like I want to read what happens after this book more than I want to reread this book like ever again. Like, aside from the sections with the bear and the mushroom and Baba Yaga, I do not care for a single page of anything else. Genuinely. Like, I want to see her reunite with Alyosha and Irina. I want to see her take Maria to the north to meet them. I want to see her go to Chernomor. I want to see her caring for the lake. I want to see if they see the bear again. I want to see everything that wasn't in this book. Frankly, this felt like a long, long prologue to a more interesting story. So, like, while I love it, I love the mythological aspect. I love the sentiment in the end, how she finally let go of her brother. I love that Solveig was back. I love how she reconciled the brothers. I love her becoming a power unto herself. I love the Land of Midnight. I love aspects of this book, but I don't love this book. Okay, I don't. And now, reading it for, like, the third time, I realize I never did. I never did. I think I was on the first time. Certainly, I was on a high because I was on such a high when she brought back Solveig. That's when I decided that it was going to be one of my favorite series of all time because she cares about the horse. He's not just sacrificed for the hell of it. She brings back the horse. And I gave her my trust. The second time, there were already a little bit, like, there were issues already with the romance subplot. I could already tell I didn't like it that much, but then I didn't read it for years and years. The last time I read this was now 5 years ago. Yes, 5 years ago, when I was 19 years old, and not in a very good headspace. Like, I was finishing up high school. I was in a miserable, miserable time. And it just isn't good. It's just not bad, but it's just not that good. It isn't. It's chaotic. It's all over the place. Despite its, like, high points, it has so many low points. Like, the high points are so high that you do begin to kind of forget the low points, but they're still there. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. I'm going to lower the rating. It's going to be a 4-star, but I might like lower it to like a 3.5, 3.6. Because at the end of the day, I didn't cry. I didn't get emotional. which is the first time that that's happened to me because I minded so much of this book that I couldn't even get emotional this time. And that's the first time it's happened to me. And you always fear your favorites like losing that power, that spark over you. Like I've read some things many more times than this, and they always hit the same. But here is my like overview now of the series, even though it's also been like 3 years since I read the other two, but we're going to forget that. It's a beautiful world, wonderful writing, fantastic characters, lovely ending. However, the stories are very disjointed. Like you could read one book a year and not really need to keep going. Like there's a reason why I didn't pick this up after book 2, why years went by. I only picked it up now because like it was winter and I was a little bit slumpy and I wanted to finish the video series. But if I'd never made the videos, I don't know when or if I would have read this again. But I am glad because now I know how I feel about it. And I would still highly recommend the trilogy. I would highly recommend her as an author. It's very well crafted. However, this book in particular, like book 1 is a masterpiece, okay? Like start to finish. It's a story unto itself. Book 2 already suffers from the fact that she spends a lot of time with people without certi. Like it's stifling you how much time she spends in Moscow and around other people and soldiers and ordinary people who aren't magical. That already like makes book 2 worse than book 1, which just had an air of magic in it. But this book just shoots all of that to hell. Okay, shoots all of it to hell because the romance subplot gets like in your face bad, not just sort of bad like it was in book 2. The pacing's all over the place. The wonderful developments happen seemingly overnight, even though they're great. And outside of like her time in Midnight with Baba Yaga and the last 100 pages, I did not like my time with this book. Didn't care about anyone except the certi, I will be very honest with you, and Vasya. Love the bear. Okay, love the bear. But Morozko, couldn't stand him in this book, frankly. Like, I remember loving Morozko, him as a presence, like his icy fingers, the way he looks, and what he brings alongside with him. Couldn't stand Morozko here. He was, and I hate to say it, but genuinely just a love interest. Like, for half the book, his entire purpose was just prance around like her love interest, and in the end, he did do something, and he had a purpose, but then you're just reminded that he's love interest, and you kind of mind. I did. Not you necessarily, but I did. I definitely did mind. And I cannot say that I'm too satisfied. Like, even the bits that I loved, as you saw in the video, I had problems with. So, like, it's like when you're watching a show, that's exactly how I felt. When you're watching a show or a film and you're like, that was a wonderful scene, that looked beautiful, I adored it, it was stunning. But then you think about it. Then you think about it and you're like, I want to have it as my screensaver, but it makes no sense and it kind of ruins the story. That's exactly how I felt. And yes, my phone is going to die. So that's it for the series. The rant was very long. I will see you in the next video.